I think the key thing that any industry can learn from any other industry actually is how to stay focused on customers and how to stay up with them and ahead of them. It's often said that good businesses listen to their customers and respond. But of course the very best businesses don't just respond, but they also get a notch ahead of the changes that customers are making. And the thing that the internet has done, I think, above all else, is that it's empowered customers to make their own decisions. They can go and equip themselves with knowledge that they perhaps would have relied upon someone else to acquire for them. If you think of it in terms of travel, you would perhaps, in years gone by, would go to your travel agent and trust that they would tell you that the hotel that you were going to was going to be great or the resort was fantastic. But you can go online and find that information out for yourself. So if you're going to stay adding value in that environment, you've got to think about the other things you can do for the customer beyond that they can acquire for themselves. And that's the challenge I would suggest to the travel industry in particular. But if you look at the grocery industry, what we've had to do there in recent years is stay ahead of the changing customer behaviour, doing a smaller weekly grocery shop and topping up more often and understanding why they're doing that and then helping them with that, roll with that change has been the secret to why some businesses have stayed successful and some have been challenged by that change. You'd have to say, my observation would be, I don't know whether the facts bear this out because I'm not close to the industry, but the people that changed their approach to customer service first were EasyJet. You saw that very clear change happen with Carolyn McCall's arrival there. And I would argue, therefore, that Ryanair's response is more competitive, perhaps, than it is in response to what their customers were telling them. Because I think their customers were telling them there were some aspects of their service they didn't like for a very long time before they made the change. I think the most successful businesses catch customers early in that journey. I famously said when I joined Sainsbury's that I would answer every customer letter or email I ever received, and I did. And one of my people added it up and said it was 2.8 letters a day for my entire 10 years in Sainsbury's on average. And I can't say that every single one of those taught me something about the business. But every now and again you'd get a letter and you think, that's a really important point that we've been missing. And I would relate that to my own experience in the travel industry. It's not an industry that engages positively and proactively with its customers that complain. My experience has been in travel that complaining feels like quite a hard process, and I think it's absolutely true that listening to those that have had bad experiences is at least as important as listening to those that have had good ones. Business doesn't like uncertainty, and I think one of the things that we can say with absolute clarity is that if we are to have a referendum, and of course that's by far from being certain because the result of the next general election will point us as to whether or not we're going to have one or not. That's going to be a period of huge uncertainty, very difficult to plan your business with that uncertainty. But also, of course, it's about customers having that uncertainty. And I would have thought that travel being one of those things that tends to be planned over the long term by families, it's a very significant investment of their hard-earned money, that any uncertainties about what their income might be in a year's time, what income tax they might be paying in a year's time, are going to weigh heavily on the sort of expenditure that the family holiday represents. But of course, the whole industry is represented here, and we had the whole thing, didn't we, a few years ago, the staycation idea. People pretty resolutely go on holiday these days, but they find different ways of getting the experience if they can't quite afford the full Monty, so to speak.